Let's take it back to 1619, when a group of several hundred Africans were kidnapped from their village, forced onto a Portuguese ship, only to be stolen by English pirates at sea. After a voyage filled with horror and death, what's referred to as some 20 and odd Negroes arrived in the New World and were sold in a place now known as Virginia. Yes, enslaved Africans were in the New World before your beloved Pilgrims. These few Africans survived the perils of the transatlantic slave trade, which had been underway since the 1500s in the Western Hemisphere. During the slave trade, Africans were captured and forcibly brought to the Americas in ginormous numbers. Historians say that from 1526 to 1867, something like 12.5 million enslaved people were stolen from Africa and journeyed to the Americas. Only about 11 million arrived alive. Back to 1619. Those who did survive the horrors of the slave trade and were brought to what would become the U.S. were also subjected to the first form of organized policing in the South, known as the Slave Patrol. In case you missed it, the Slave Patrol and slave catchers were the first form of organized police in the South. These watching-ass white folks first emerged in the colony of Carolina in the early 1700s and set the tone for policing as we know it. The Slave Patrol kept tabs on the whereabouts of the enslaved. And that meant if black men and women were off a plantation, then the Slave Patrol could demand to see a slave badge noting their occupation. Slave Patrol could stop and search whomever's belongings just because. Now, I wonder who that sounds like. Then there was the slave catchers.